All right, everybody, thanks for joining in. This episode, we are talking about man, I don't even know where to start with this because I've struggled with this for a few days of how to do this intro, but we are talking about a movie from our childhood, from very early in our childhood, and we'll probably get to this a little bit more later, but it still blows my mind how early in our childhood this movie is from. But this episode, we are jumping back, like I said, to our childhood, and we are talking about I think what is kind of a taboo movie. I'm not actually sure because we were exposed to it at such an early age. But we're talking about 1985's horror classic, The Mutilator, or some might know it as Fall Break, even though I've never actually seen it labeled as Fall Break, but...
You know what? That's funny. I was about to say, when I went to watch this film, I got it on Amazon, and when the titles came up, it said Fall Break. I'm like, what the hell?
Cool.
And so I and I had remembered reading about that or something. There's a lot of horror movies. Seems like it's only horror movies that have this issue where like double titles, like where they have the same movie comes out in different titles. You never hear about it with other films. Good example would be like when we did The Chopping Mall, that was originally called Killbots. The Deadly Spawn, when that came out on VHS back in the 80s, they called it Return of the Alien, The Deadly Spawn, kind of to play off of the Alien, movies at the time so that people would be more likely to pick it up.
This is kind of one of those, even though it's not a Thanksgiving movie, this is always one of those movies that comes up as, Thanksgiving horror movies and Mutilator, because it does happen in the fall. But a true Thanksgiving horror movie that has the same thing is the movie Blood Rage. And when I watched that last week or the week before, I had forgotten about this, but the copy that I had watched, it even said like Slasher, which was the original title of that. And I was like, because at first I was like, oh shit, is the wrong movie playing? And then I looked it up real quick and I was like, oh no, this is the right one. Okay, cool.
Too funny. Yeah. And speaking of, and then just today I watched the fourth Rambo movie, and I purchased the extended cut of that film because I'm a really big fan of that last Rambo film. And it's entitled, it doesn't say it on the packaging, but instead of it just being called Rambo, when you watch the extended cut, it's called John Rambo. Like that's the title card in the movie.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it's weird how many, all these title changes and, different things bouncing around here, but
I wonder with Rambo if they were like, well, we can't just call it Rambo because we already had a Rambo movie. Let's call it John Rambo. And then somebody went, oh, wait, no, the first one was called First Blood. Oh, that's right.
Well, the Rambo series is the most convoluted in terms of titles. Okay, so you got First Blood, Rambo First Blood Part 2. Then you got, instead of Rambo First Blood Part 3, you got Rambo 3. And then you got Rambo.
Yeah,
and now you've got
horrible.
Extended cut John Rambo. So anyhow, but I digress. So anyhow, we're talking about what I saw. I'll just say I saw a movie called Fall Break on Amazon, which I think is a pretty generic name. I like The Mutilator a lot better.
Do you know, was the version that you watched the most recent time that was titled Fall Break, was it the unrated version?
That's the thing. Here's what I'm going to say about that. If it wasn't, then I don't know that I would be able to stomach the unrated version, because the version I saw was pretty disturbing. So I think it couldn't have been I don't see what could have been cut, because it was very gory.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that, yeah, the version I saw was very much I mean, it was pretty hardcore.
I know that when back in the VHS days that there was, for this particular movie, there was two versions of it. There was like the regular rated R version, and there was a unrated version of it. And I don't know, I'm assuming that this isn't true, even though this is like, from the mid 80s, 1985. If this was one of the first ones to do the unrated versus rated, because I mean, back in those days, really what unrated probably would have come out to be is what was the trend for a while, which would have been the quote unquote director's cut. But,
Right.
But yeah, I know I've seen the rated version, but I almost think that anymore it's probably harder to come across the rated version than it is the unrated version.
Oh, and another thing too, there's two different, this is another weird thing, and this kind of goes back to the whole Killbots / chopping mall thing. There is two different versions of the poster art for this film. And it's really bizarre because they're basically the same picture. It's like you see, like, I think it's like 3 or 4, the teenagers like hanging on these hooks, like up by their collars on these like nails. And then you see like the mutilator's hand coming with holding the fishing hook. But it's like, it's the same basic design, but just two completely different pictures. Shopping mall where you had like the robot hand holding the shopping bag with body parts in it. And there's like two different versions of that. Like it's the same concept, just two different versions of it, which is really weird. But so I don't know what that's about. Maybe like the original art, maybe there was some sort of, rights to that. So they just basically let's just go and do it again. Same concept, but different enough that it's not the same. Yeah, but and then going back to your whole rated thing, we're going to get into like when you and I first saw this film, but I believe we must have seen the unrated version when we were kids too.
Very well could have been. And I think that the reason for the unrated versus rated R version of this was that the MPAA originally wanted to rate this X, and so then they must have stepped back and did some editing to get the R rating, and then once it was finally out on video, then there's, screw it, we're going to put all that stuff back in there. It's kind of funny, though. You're talking about 33 years ago, and some of the stuff that is in this that, like you had said, you're kind of like, ugh, that's gross. Some of that stuff makes it onto, cable television anymore. I mean, just like regular cable television.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's like nuts.
Right.
It's insane. So should we go ahead and, before we dive into the movie, should we go ahead and talk about the first time that we saw this movie?
I think we need to.
I'm going to go ahead and say this as a parent. Now, my kids are older. Mark, I know your children are older as well.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and put this public service announcement out there as a parent. If you are hosting a sleepover at your house and you are going to have movies for the grown-ups to watch, either A, do it in a place that the children are not going to be in the same place that you are in, or B, don't have it be some weird slasher gore fest movie. And
no. Yeah, that's so funny because, but the thing is these movies weren't rented for the adults to watch. This was rented for the kids.
That's so weird. And what we're talking about is we were at a slumber party when we were in.
This was 4th grade. So how old are you in 4th grade?
4th grade.
This is, okay, so hold on. So 1st grade, you're 6. 2nd, you're 7. 3rd, you're 8. So this is like 9, 10 years old. This is when we saw this for the first time. Yeah, it was a double feature at that slumber party, too. Okay. It was Mutilator and Helter Skelter.
Two movies that kids should never see.
So it really kind of, and it totally. And then one funny thing, like too, I remember one of the things that I kind of got known for after we were all watching it as friends, like one of the jokes that all of our mutual friends used to do on me. I don't know if you remember this, but the scene where the girl is in the pool and she's kind of like exposed. Like as soon as that popped up, like I covered my eyes and then I slowly like peeked through my fingers. And then so ever at that point, like I remember our mutual friends used to always do that in front of me.
Oh, I don't remember that. But
making fun of me.
You know what's funny about this is and we've talked about this before. So we were friends when we were kids, and then I moved away, and then we didn't talk to each other for a long time. That particular sleepover, for some reason, in my mind, like sort of became like a thing of myth to myself. And for one reason or another, and I still am not exactly sure what it is about the Mutilator, but the Mutilator has always been one of these movies to where it's not, like I said, it's not really taboo to me because I saw it when I was like 10 years old. But it was always this thing where, to myself, when I would see the movie like in rental places and things like that, or if it was like on cable or whatever, like I'd always like just kind of like would get like a weird feeling about it, like that movie's dirty, almost kind of like it was really weird. And I didn't really have the same feeling towards Helter Skelter as I did towards this, which, I mean, Helter Skelter is not, I mean, it's a movie that fourth graders should definitely not watch. But you know, it's not on the same level as the Mutilator at all.
No, the Mutilator is like a horror porn, especially in the 80s.
Man, it was so weird. And it was weird, too, because I did not see this movie this is one of those horror movies that I saw it when I was like in fourth grade. And I don't think I saw it for probably a good 15, 20 years afterwards.
You know, that's funny you say that. The same with me. It was one of those films that disappeared. It was gone. And I never saw it again after that sleepover. And it like was burned in my head. And like I couldn't like shake it. But like, and I don't think I wanted to see it again. But I remember I don't know, you remember 4-Star Video, right? That video store. Well, when you would go in through the back entrance and you'd have to walk up that ramp, you know, by the water. This is this old classic mom and pop video store back in the day. Well, anyhow, you'd walk up to like the second floor where the first floor, because you enter through the basement basically, and you'd walk up to this video store, which was like in this tiny little mall, which like maybe 3 stores in it. They had the Mutilator poster up there. So I remember knowing about that it existed prior to seeing it, but after seeing it, then like always seeing that poster there, it was like, oh my gosh, I saw that.
It wasn't weird. Like you just had this weird feeling about it. Like,
oh yeah.
And then the thing that happened to me, and I don't know if this happened to you or not, eventually, like before I ever saw it again, after like the VHS stores kind of went away and like DVD was coming in and stuff, I couldn't ever remember what the name of it was for the longest time. The only image of it I really had stuck in my head was really the poster art for it. I'm like, oh, there was these kids on these hooks, and I was like, oh, there was this guy with this hook hand, but I can't remember. But they were on spring break or something, and then I couldn't remember it, and then eventually I was probably close to like 30, if not even older, and then I came across like the Mutilator, and I was like, that might be the movie. And I like rented it or something. It was on cable or whatever it was, and like threw it on, and I was like, oh, yep, that's the movie. That's the one.
I don't think you know what? Up until last week when I reviewed this and watched it again, I don't think I watched it in its entirety. I think like I always knew the title, but it like after the 80s it kind of disappeared. Like I don't think they made it, like the VHS, they were no longer making them or something. And it didn't come out on DVD for a long, long time. And then when it came out, I didn't pick it up, but I remember it was like a big deal when it finally did come out. And I think it was way later. It wasn't, I mean, like relatively late in the game. And I think for me it was like I went back and I watched some of the gore scenes on like, YouTube or something, or somewhere like that. And then like, I didn't watch the whole film, but I like went back like probably in my 30s sometime and watched some of the scenes like I remembered and like, yep, there it is. And then, but I never, up until recently, I didn't watch the whole thing.
It's almost like we've been traumatized by this.
Yeah, I think we have. But yeah, so, all right, everybody. First of all, grab your Natty Light and grab your popcorn, and we're going to dive into this film. We're going to kind of give you an idea what this story is about. And the funny thing about this movie is, like, I remembered the whole plot and everything, and I remembered pretty much all the death scenes. I mean, there were a few that like I didn't remember, but this is basically a story about starts out. This kid and his mom are alone in their house, and the mom is making a birthday cake for dad, and dad must be out. I think he's out hunting, and the kid decides to polish his dad's hunting guns for his birthday present. Puts up a little piece of paper, tapes it to the gun cabinet, and says, like, happy birthday, I cleaned your guns. And as he's cleaning one of them, he decides to kind of aim and shoot and just like, and pull the trigger, and the bullet goes through the wall and kills his mother. And literally seconds later, his dad walks into the house, sees mom dead, and freaks out on him. And pretty much from that point on, that dad like is not right in the head. And because he's like, he grabs a bottle of whiskey or something, and he's like sitting next to his dead wife and kind of pouring whiskey down her throat.
Could you just, as you're hearing this, folks, just try to picture yourself 10 years old watching this on a TV.
And then we flash forward like 10 years or whatever. The kid's a teenager in college.
Yeah.
Him and his buddies are all sitting around in an old 80s bar drinking Natty Light, and his dad calls him up and says, hey, can you go close up my condo for the season? And so they all decide, hey, well, it's fall break, which is there really a fall break? I mean, I think of a spring break, but not a fall break. But anyhow, so they decide to go to the condo and like, hey, let's have a party. And supposedly in the 80s, parties meant like board games and Natty Light, because that's pretty much all they did. And hide and seek, too. I don't know about you, but when I was in my 20s, I don't think I was playing hide and seek. Anyhow, so they go back up there, and dad is like this deranged guy, and he's hiding up there, and and pretty much what's happening next as the slasher tropes start to appear.
Yeah, it's pretty much straight up gore fest.
Big time gore fest.
That is one thing I will give props to this movie is mid 80s, all practical effects, and
yeah,
they did a good job of even making us 40-plus-year-olds go, ugh.
Yeah. Now, was the first death was it? It wasn't the police officer, was it?
Well, besides the mom. So
other than the mom, yeah, I think it was either the police officer or the couple in the pool. So I think it was a cop, right? Or I don't know. It was either one or the other. But the cop death was really gory, and it's funny because I remembered it. This shows like how effective those effects were to a fourth grader, because like I remembered exactly all of that, like, and it was burned in my head, like him getting the big machete in the head, and then the being decapitated, and it's, oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, it's like total like old school gore, and when you watch it, it's pretty gross to watch, but at the same time, there's like that that it's not real, so it's kind of like a mix between it's really disgusting, but also kind of fake looking at the same time.
Now, do you have any other recollections of that slumber party?
Yes, I remember there was a kid that I feel real bad thinking about it now as a 40-some-year-old, and like it was like he was kind of picked on a lot by our group. I don't know if you remember him being there or not. Well, anyhow, there was a little tiny creek like in this kid's yard that we slept in. That slept over at his house, and there were crayfish in there. And this kid had like would he caught one of them and it died, and it was like he kept it and it was like in his drawer. I don't know if you remember that. It was like turned blue,
Ugh.
and it smelled like this horrible dead fish smell. But I remember our mutual friend taking that crayfish, that dead corpse crayfish, and putting it up against the nose of the kid that we all kind of picked on while he was sleeping, and he woke up to that.
Well, that is, I don't remember that, but that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, I don't. It's so weird. I mean, that was so long ago. I remember, and maybe this is incorrect too. So it wasn't really out in the country, but it was like on the outskirts of town.
Yeah.
But then there was like the house, but then there was like this like shack almost, like part of the garage or something. But it was like almost like a sunroom or something, like this big room with I remember like big window or something, and that's where we were like in for most of the festivities. But and maybe I'm wrong with this one too, but like there was like bobbing for apples or something there.
Oh man, I don't remember that. I know it was a Hispanic family. You remember that, right?
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it was like a house that was sort of like, yeah, you're right. It was like sort of out towards, man, I wonder where it was, but yeah, it was like maybe like, you know how it got a little bit more like county areas, I guess. And I think it was probably out there somewhere. And I don't even know where it would have been like now. I wouldn't have a clue. But it was an older home. Yeah, I guess, yeah, we were kind of like on a sun porch, I guess, watching the film. And we were watching it was you, me, and I don't think everybody was watching it together. I think some, like half of us split up.
Yeah, that's where it's where I always had the impression that like the grown-ups were like, "Oh, hey, we got these movies. We're going to watch these while the kids are whatever." And then like some of us like walked in and were like, "Hey, what's going on in here? Ooh, scary movie. Let's do that."
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I was big in this. You and I know were like top notch right up in there, up totally into scary movies at the time. So this was like, yeah, I know you and I were like definitely going to sit through this. And I think a couple others were there too, but there were a few that didn't stay for it. So, but, and I think I remember staying for the majority of Helter Skelter, or seemed like that one for whatever reason, we didn't finish it or it got late.
It probably would have bored us because I mean that's really a courtroom more than anything type of movie.
Right. Yeah, I think that was like one of the things where we like got up and went to sleep because it just got boring.
They're like, yeah, screw Chuck Manson and his crap.
Yeah. So, and that's pretty much. I don't remember the bobbing for apples. For some reason, I'm thinking we had pizza, but I could be wrong. Yeah, all I remember is watching the movies, and then the whole crayfish incident, and like the next morning, we were all hanging out by the creek trying to catch another crayfish.
I don't remember that either.
You don't remember that?
No, I don't. I don't remember that piece of it. So here's another question too, and I have not confirmed nor can I deny this or not, but do you think your mom ever found out that we watched that movie at that party?
It's funny because I would use this type of stuff against my mom. Like I would be like, because she would like say, "Oh, you can't watch this movie," and then I'd go have a sleepover and like, "Hey, guess what movie I watched?"
Oh,
so I don't think I told her about Mutilator, but I remember telling her about Helter Skelter because she had told me about it. Because that was something she had seen and she was familiar with. I think the Mutilator was like one of those movies that was so disturbing that like I just like I'm just gonna pretend I didn't see that movie. It was like one of those movies that I had to just kind of put it off to the side.
Yeah,
and
can't remember if I told anybody or not.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I told her about Helter Skelter, and then that was like kind of the going thing was like I went to a sleepover and saw Helter Skelter for a long time. But yeah, the Mutilator I kind of pushed away. And that's because of as we progress into this is really there's the final death scene of one of the victims, not other than the killer himself, and well, there's a police officer too at the end, but yeah, it's got one of the most disturbing death scenes ever filmed in a horror movie, in my opinion. And so and that scene specifically like burned in my brain. And I think this is probably the scene that probably got the most edits and cuts and all that. And there's probably the cut, and that's why I'm saying like I cannot imagine that the version I saw was the edited version, because it seemed like it was pretty full on and pretty disturbing.
You gonna go into any detail? Or you're just gonna leave everybody on their edge of their seats?
I'm gonna keep them on the edge of their seats for 1 second because I want to go into one thing real quick.
Okay.
I want to say before I go into the most disturbing scene of the whole film, I want to mention the weirdest and stupidest scene of the whole film, which is I think it's the first death when the couple go swimming. Now, let's play this out here. Okay, so there's this pool on the condo property, and the pool is like basically under like this big canopy or a tent or whatever, which was kind of weird. And so anyhow, this couple, they go skinny dipping in the water, and they're swimming around. And they kind of allude to the fact that the water's cloudy or something's weird with it, like the chemicals are too strong. So anyhow, they both go swimming, and they're like playing this stupid game where one of them like hides under the water, and then the other has to look for him, and the one jumps up and the other one's hiding. So anyhow, during this time, somehow we're supposed to believe that the killer crept into the pool, got under the water, killed the girl, pulled her in and drowned her, dragged her back up out of the pool without the guy knowing. And again, this pool, it's in a lit room. It's not like it's like this blackout area. So it was like, that was the stupidest, most ridiculous scene. I don't know if I never caught that, because I thought like, I remember her death where she's like floating, or she's swimming on her back, laying on her back in the pool, and then his hands come out and pull her back in and pull her into the water. But I had assumed that her boyfriend was like out of the pool at the time. I didn't realize he was like in there with her, and then like when they show the killer like climbing out of the pool with her on his back while he's like playing around in the water, it was like, what? you missed like how do you miss that, So anyhow, so the killer leaves all these like little trails of her underwear and blood and all this stuff. And like, so he goes and follows and goes back to the killer's garage, where pretty much is where he hangs out. It's kind of his lair. And the killer turns on a propeller for a motor for a boat, and slices them up. And that's like your first real gory death. It's very, very gory and very, very practical, and a lot of fake blood and, all that stuff. But, the actor obviously probably was a friend of a friend of a friend, and that's how he got the role.
Oh, man. We're going to end up meeting some of these people at a festival or at a convention in a couple of years.
So weird.
And we'll be like, he's like, oh, Horrorheads, I'm a big fan. We're like, oh, did you listen to the Mutilator episode? Please. Yeah, my dad was the producer on that. Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Oh, man. Yeah, this movie is... Yeah, I know I'll let you describe it, because it is one of those things even now when you're like, what? How did you even think you were going to get away with that?
It's so gory. Now you're talking about the scene?
The scene, yep.
Yeah, and this scene was like... This is the one that stuck with me as a kid. Did it stick with you as a kid too?
I don't think it did, because like I said before,
so weird.
And maybe it was the one that I was like, up and the blackout is triggered, and I don't really remember anything.
Probably. But anyhow, yeah, so this basically the final death of one of the teenage or college students or whatever. The killer grabs this girl, tosses her up on his workbench, and takes a big giant fishing hook, like a shark hook, this isn't like something you're catching bluegill with. This is like a full-on giant fish hook, like you're catching a whale with or something. And he proceeds to stick it into her crotch, and then it comes up out her stomach.
Ah.
And it's the most disgusting. And then he pulls her up, and she's like hanging from it. It's like the most disgusting scene in the whole film. And I remember seeing that as a kid, and like it completely destroyed. It was like a PTSD moment. It was like so traumatizing. It was like, wow, that was the most disturbing thing I've ever seen. Because, as a kid, you don't see the bad acting and all that. You see like this happening, and it's like, how do you know this isn't real? It's like really messed up.
4th grade, folks.
4th grade. And and I remember that scene like just burned in my brain as a kid, and like I never wanted to see it again. And then out of curiosity, I found it again in my 30s, and then obviously for this episode, I watched it again. But yeah, it's one of those things where, man, it was just like the what do you call it? Like a mean-spirited kill, and it's like just too much. It's just like one of those like, man, that was crazy.
Yeah,
but then
when you come to kills in like slasher movies, while it maybe it's horrible to say, but usually what I like is when there's a kill, I want it to be like over the top, but I want it to be like something that, again, maybe insensitive, maybe not, but I wanted something that I'm like, yeah, that was awesome. Not something that goes like, oh, why would you film that? Oh, God.
Right, exactly.
Ugh.
Yeah, it was really disturbing. I'm surprised you don't remember that. Like, from back in the day.
I remember it now, but no, I don't remember it then. Yeah, but like I said, it was, I think, maybe I was a puss in 4th grade, but, I think that this movie really did a number on me back then. And then, it was just one of those things where I there was a movie that we watched last night, but I don't really remember it. I actually remember like sitting there and watching certain parts of Helter Skelter. Like if I were to go throw on Helter Skelter right now, I would like remember sitting on this floor in this living room or wherever we were at and watching that in 4th grade. But other than, just like little tiny glimpses of the Mutilator, I like don't remember it at all.
Yeah, you blocked it out then.
No,
and it's one of those movies we didn't really talk about on the playground either.
No, I think I really think that this was something that, I mean, I hate to throw this out there, but we're not naming any names or anything, but I really think it was almost comparable to, you have these 4th graders at your house watching this horrific movie as it would be if you had a bunch of 16-year-olds at your house drinking beer with you,
Yeah.
while you're, and I kind of think that that's the mentality that we had, was like, oh, that happened the other night. We're not supposed to talk about that. So
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it was a very strange, disturbing film for sure. And yeah, I think we all just left kind of scarred after that. And it was like, because we were all like, dabbling with horror at that time with the Friday the 13th films and the Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street and all that. But none of us were ready to, this is like, we were all like kind of walking around the deep end, like holding on to the side and, watching the Mutilator, like you were like basically put on the high dive and told to just jump off into the deep end without knowing how to swim.
Oh man.
And that's basically where we were. I mean, it was tough stuff. And I think it just kind of put us back a few notches. But yeah, the film wraps up basically. It's this guy's dad who's killing everybody, which is really disturbing. Him and his girlfriend are trying to get away, and the dad's like attacking the car, and he's got this battle axe, and he's cutting through the the cover because it's a convertible, so the cloth cover on the top, the cloth hood, and the girl basically smashes the dad up against a brick wall, and which chops the dad in half. And well, I remember it so well, just like clear as day as back when I was a kid. So dad's like chopped in half, laying on the ground with holding the battle axe still, and the cop that comes to the scene like goes to check it out, and the dad, lo and behold, is still alive, chops the cop's leg off, and the cop's like, freaking out, holding his bloody stump, and then the dad just kind of does a crazy laugh, and I think he kind of dies at that point. But yeah, that was our fourth grade chamber party for you.
So bad.
So, I'm surprised they weren't serving us Natty Light.
Oh man, if we would have waited like 2 more years, they would have been like,
yeah,
tequila bombs for everybody.
Yeah, too funny.
Oh man.
So at the end of the day, like the Mutilator, it's kind of funny because I don't know that I want to fully give it a thumbs up, but I want to say that like it gave me the feel of sort of Basket Case. Like it was like hardcore gore and disturbing stuff, but at the same time, really terrible acting. The scene or the where they shot the movie, the little condo was terrible. To me, it was like I don't know, like there were shots in it that, like, if they were to remake this movie, which they probably will, I guess. Well, no, they'll probably now do like a follow-up to it.
A direct sequel, yeah.
Well, you know what? There's never been a sequel, so that would be, I guess, normal. But anyhow, like, if they were to redo this film, they would probably find like a really cool log cabin or something with like a bunch of hunting stuff like deer heads and stuff like that hanging up. But instead, it's like basically it looked like somebody like rented, like, they basically, oh, my grandparents said we could use their condo for the weekend to film a movie. So, hey, you guys want to go do that? Yeah, it's right off of Lake Michigan or something. It just seemed like like the setting was pretty bad. And then like, it didn't seem like, I think they could have done I knew what they were going for. And I think it was sort of lackluster. So atmosphere and all that was pretty bad. But, the thing about this movie is horrific as it was, it kept my interest even all these years later. And as dated as it was, as bad as the acting was, I wasn't like turning away. I wasn't getting bored the way I would like a lot of films, Zombies, I'm talking to you. And like, so here I am like watching this movie, and as for a mid-'80s slasher flick, I got to give it a thumbs up, although I don't recommend it, if that makes sense.
As much as Zombies comes up on this show, we should really start putting warning messages, like warning sticker on the thing. Do not watch Zombies no matter what we say, because people are like, Zombies, what the hell is that? I should go check that out. And then they're like, oh, god damn it, Mark. Yeah. You son of a bitch.
Exactly.
So I will say this, depending on how you've interpreted this episode, I don't think we actually were bad-mouthing this movie at all. And I would second everything that you said. This is a straight-up gore fest. It is this is pretty much anything and everything you could ask for a slasher movie of the mid-'80s. The kind of the perfect setup for it. Like, oh, something tragic happened when this person was young, and then years later, other people involved with that need some help with something. So we have all these people going into the situation, and oh, weird, now all these deaths happen. What I will say about this movie is, when I was watching it the most recent time, with as traumatic as The Mutilator was to us when we were children, I really think, and you can back me up or you can disagree with me on this or not, but I almost think that this particular movie might be the perfect definition of a beer and popcorn movie. When you look at it, I mean, it's the acting is just bad enough to where, this isn't a movie you would be like, hey, let's watch this movie, to any and everybody. But if somebody was like, oh man, I want to see like just a kind of a shitty horror movie just to kind of make my girlfriend scoot a little bit closer to me on the couch and stuff. You're like, oh, you got to watch the Mutilator, dude. That's the one. It's, it's the right amount of cheesiness, but the gore is right there to where you can be like, and even with the scene, I even think that if you have, by the time you get to that particular scene, I think you got enough popcorn in your belly, enough beer in your belly to where you're like, ooh, but it's not, unless you're 10 years old, you're not going to be like, oh God, what the hell was that? And just messed up forever.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the beer and popcorn, like to me, I think like when I think beer and popcorn, I think there's a certain level of, I don't know, like a cheese factor or a, not comedy, but like when there's definitely like sort of, I mean, like the acting's bad in this. I think with this film though, it kind of leans to such a mean-spirited tone whereas like it doesn't fully, I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you know where I'm going with this? It's like the beer and popcorn, like to me, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2.
So maybe you need, with this one, then you need some like bourbon aged ale and some slightly burnt popcorn.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, perfect. It's like the bowl of popcorn where you look in and there's like those black ones that are like kind of crispy and they're sort of hard to chew on, but you kind of got to get through it because you don't want to waste it. I think it's that kind of popcorn. Yeah, like you said, some aged bourbon or some Natty Light if you got that. Might as well toss that out there too.